Good morning, class. Now this lecture will be on chapter 4, cell physiology. So I'll begin it here and I'll be lectured to you guys in person, and then I'll have an ending lecture recorded for next week. So this is probably the biggest chapter. In this chapter, finally, we're gonna finish kind of our background to begin skin, bone, muscle, and continue down the body. So for some of you, this will be review. For all of you, this should be review. You should know cell physiology in terms of cell respiration. You should know stages of mitosis and how transcription and translation takes place to make proteins. But back when I was in school, I didn't get it the first time in biology. I mean, I heard it. I did okay in the test, but God, I hate to admit, but just teaching it actually really helped me solidify what it all means. So I think for a lot of you, maybe you've had this before, but hearing it from me, looking it over at the chapter again, will make these things make sense. Some lights will go on, I hope, and then you'll be able to make sense. We do muscle contraction and other cell physiology things, for all the systems of your body. So let's get going. All right, so indeed, everything that takes, oh my God, everything that you do from physically, mentally, all the chemical reactions in your body, digesting food and making hemoglobin in your bone marrow, all these things take energy, and they take their chemical reactions that take place, yeah. So you see metabolism is going to be all the chemical reactions that take place. And every cell in your body, there's thousands of reactions every second. And all these chemicals are going through these pathways and cycles that intersect with each other. It's really complex. It's amazing that this all takes place. But anything that happens in your body to make you and to do everything that you do has to follow the laws of physics and laws and chemical reactions. So there's no mystery, there's no magic that only life has. It's all explainable by chemistry and physics. I mean, we're wonderful, mysterious creatures, and the meaning of life is deep indeed. But when it comes to explaining how you do things, you can just, being reductionist, you can look down at the cell, and people are studying little aspects of all the things that happens in our cells. All right, so might even be a test question you may see. Metabolism. What it is all the chemical reactions that take place in your body, everything. Sum total, that is your metabolism. Yeah. And two types, when we look at this, a bit broad, big picture. Anabolism is building up. I think like anabolic steroids builds muscle. Yeah. Catabolism is breaking down. And we do both of these things. Anabolism, when you build big complex molecules, that takes energy. When you build something complicated, it takes energy. To bust it up is easy, right? So to break down molecules actually usually releases energy. Whenever you break a bond, a little bit of energy comes off. So you'll see how we build up, how we make things, like the molecules in our body and skin cells and hair and everything that we make, build muscle, that takes energy to put those pieces together to build it up. That's anabolism. And we digest our food as catabolism. We break a big starch in a bagel into little sugars. That's going to release energy each time we break a bond. So looking at our bodies, generally, we take in molecules from our food, either that plants have made or that animals, we eat animals or plants, and we steal their molecules, all right? And you just can't eat a steak and cake. I'm going to take that muscle from this cow butt muscle and put it onto my muscle, right? We do is we take that muscle, we have to completely break it down into its amino acids, its little tiny parts. And then we'll use our recipe that's in our genes to build our own muscle proteins. So that's the basic thing. We'll also just break down big molecules to use the energy. So we'll use the energy and we'll use the, recycle those parts to build ourselves. So catabolism breaks down large molecules into, sugars have to be monosaccharides, so it can't be a big old starch. And we can't absorb proteins, we got to break it down to amino acids, and that we can suck into our bloodstream. and fats. We've got to break down into glycerol and fatty acids and bring it into our cells, and then we reconstitute it again. So everything's got to be broken down into its little parts. That's catabolism. And then it takes energy to build up our own bodies, and that's anabolism. Yeah, so just memorize this chart if you could. I'm just kidding. We're learning so much about how the cells function. And this is what cell biologists do and organic chemists looking at what goes on, biochemists. Yeah. And indeed, we have reactions that go one way. Here's another reaction. They intersect. They use the same molecule in the middle. And so, oh my God, and there's all this that's going on. And you can spend your whole life, looking at this little neighborhood here. You've got your lab, and you've really broken down this little piece. And then with computers now, we have databases, and people are cataloging every molecule you see in human life. And this is important when we look at disease to see, how does it differ from that? But we're building this big thing, and with computers, we can step back and see all these reactions and how they interact. That's really complex, really cool. All right, so an example of anabolism when we build up is, here you could take two simple sugars, monosaccharides, and build a disaccharide like sucrose. And by doing this, what we do is, it's called a dehydration. So you need to know, we use dehydration in anabolism. It means take away water, right? Dehydrate yourself. So in fact, if you look at it, see this oxygen holds these sugars together? Well, what we need to remove is two hydrogens and an oxygen. Oh, that's water, all right? So you remove a water, and then that bond takes place. So often anabolism is dehydration. You take a water away. And amazingly, it's not just in sugars, but also in proteins and fats. It's the same process. Dehydration takes away a water and sticks them together to build up this molecule. So look, you can see down here, if you look at the bottom, we can see in a protein, you have two amino acids. And again, amazingly, it's a water that if you take away two H's and an O, then we call it a peptide bond when two amino acids come together. It's a dipeptide, a polypeptide. Remember, it folds all those different structures. It folds all over, and that's then we call it a protein when it's a long polypeptide that's folded around. But it all starts from two amino acids, and then dehydration, water comes away, you make a peptide bond. Next one, next one, next one. And with fats, you can see you actually get three waters because you remove it from this glycerol, these three, and then those three fatty acid chains, just the oxygen will hold it there. All right, catabolism, breaking down molecules, is the opposite. So instead of dehydration, taking water away to put it together, we have hydrolysis, which is using water to break it apart. To lyse a cell is to burst the cell, to rip it apart. So hydrolysis is going to, it's going to take water, and that's going to break apart a bigger molecule into its two parts. So if you take a look, you can see, you can see that it's going to take water and it'll break it apart. And when you break apart a bond, you get a little bit of energy. Yeah, and so you can see by breaking these chemical bonds, you're going to release some energy. And if you light a big fire in the fireplace, you release all that energy with all those bonds, right? And in our bodies, we take sugars and fats, and we break the bonds carefully in a controlled environment, and we harvest that energy to build ATP, to build this kind of a molecule that we can store that energy in. Yeah. So endergonic means that the reaction takes energy, and exergonic means it's going to give it off. That'll be the next slide. So when you want to put something together, it takes energy. So you got to put it into it. When you break apart, like in catabolism, it releases energy. And like I say, in a fireplace, the energy turns into heat and light. But in our bodies, we're going to take that energy from the bonds, and we're going to store it in ATP and some other molecules where we can store that like a rechargeable battery and use it to power reactions and then recharge it. Yep. So exergonic is when it gives off energy, like lighting a candle. So if a reaction is going to take place, it's going to go forward, we call it a spontaneous reaction. But it almost makes it sound like it happens just rapidly and it's automatically going to happen. It's favorable for that reaction to happen. And why do I say that? What that means is that the reactants over here, the beginning, they have a higher energy level than the products down here. So going downhill is easy. So a wax, you can burn it, turns into carbon dioxide and water, right? So that's going to go. It's going to go. But you can have a candle on your shelf for decades and years, and it doesn't go, right? But you add a spark, a match, and it's going to go that direction. Now, to take carbon dioxide and water and make wax, that takes a lot of energy. That goes uphill. That's not going to happen unless you put the energy in, if you're a bee or however we make wax without bees. So spontaneous reaction means that it's going to go, but it doesn't mean it's going to go right away. And another example is this bowl of sugar. I mean, the sugar is going to turn into carbon dioxide and water if you light a match to it, right? But it's just going to sit there in the sugar bowl for years and years, because it turns out there's like a little hump it has to get over before it can get to this lower energy level. But the key is, what is the energy change? And if you have lower energy down here and higher energy here, it's going to go downhill. So showing you graphically, here's the reactants. Here's what you start out with. Let's say it's wax, it's a candle. And the products are going to be carbon dioxide and water. And the free energy is much less. So if you burn a candle, it gives off energy. That energy is released, and you end up with these molecules at a lower state, lower energy state. We call it delta G. That's the difference in the energy state. I'm not going to talk a lot about it. Now the issue is, in this case, it's going downhill. Imagine like rolling a boulder. It's down the hill, no problem. But if there's a little lip, a little speed bump, then you got to kind of get over it. That's what we often see. And so this little energy barrier, it can be low, it can be high, but you need to get over that, and then energy is released. So how do we get over that bump? Well, I'll tell you in a moment. Imagine how you would do it. You guys thinking how we make reactions happen quicker? Oh, you should think enzymes, right? And also heat. You put heat, it's going to make things happen quicker to get over that hump. All right. Well, here I'm showing you ATP. This is the most important molecules in your body. You think you power yourself with glucose, with sugar, right? Well, your chemical reactions, your muscles can't use sugar, but we burn sugar and all those carbons. We burn it to get the energy out of those bonds, and we store it in this molecule. It's really all about ATP, adenosine triphosphate. That is it's this last phosphate, this bond here, that is storing the energy that's going to power your muscles for that run or whatever you're going to do. So with hydrolysis, we get ADP. So adenosine diphosphate only has 2 phosphates. AT triphosphate has the 3. So the energy comes right here. And you can even make adenosine monophosphate. You can break this one too. But generally, we're talking about ADP here. We use energy to put that phosphate on, and we make that higher energy ATP. So right now in your muscles, you have ATP ready to go. And you start running, you're going to take off that phosphate and use that little bit of energy to make your muscles contract. Not only your muscles, but all the chemical reactions we want to go uphill, we use this ATP. So if we want to do anabolism, we want to build a big complicated molecule like hemoglobin or insulin or muscle protein or keratin in our fingernails, things like that. We want to build a big molecule. It ain't going to happen spontaneously. It's going uphill. You're making simple things into big molecules. It takes energy. So how do you make that? How do you go uphill? Well, what we do is we couple this reaction that wants to go uphill with one that's going downhill. And as long as the reaction going downhill gives off more energy than it takes to go uphill, we can go up that hill. Am I just confusing you with my analogies here? Well, I'll show you a picture here. All right, so let's say an example. We want to put a phosphate onto a sugar molecule. It's called phosphorylation. We want to put a phosphate. It makes it more higher energy. Well, it turns out that it's uphill. If it's positive, delta G means it's going uphill. It's not going to happen spontaneously. So that's a problem. But we want to do this. We have to do this in our body, let's say. Well, so this is endergonic. It takes energy to put a phosphate on glucose. So let's look at when we break down ATP into ADP. That gives off a bunch of energy. Look at that. It gives off, it's negative 7.3. So that means that this is giving off energy when we break down ATP into ADP. And the other reaction needs energy to go uphill. And if we couple those together, so see this? We use the ATP, let that break down, and then you can use that phosphate to put on the sugar. It's negative. It's gonna work. All right, as long as you know the reactants are lower energy. As long as it's a negative number, it's gonna work. It's negative 7, so it's kind of like an anchor. I mean, ATP, let it burn, is gonna give off 7. Here it's only you're using some energy to go uphill. But why am I talking about this? This is how we do anabolism. This is how we make reactions happen in our body that wouldn't chemically happen normally. We do it by coupling an energy releasing reaction, which is going to be ATP, breaking it down, with whatever we want to build up. And that's how we do all these things in our body that go against the free energy. All right. Well, yeah. Okay. Well, we'll keep going here. I thought about it. Guess what? I can't really see you because I'm looking at a computer. Yeah. Maybe we'll take a break here and split into 2 parts. All right. Let's see. There we go. All right. I think it's a good idea. I mean, one huge lecture, a couple small ones, it's probably better to do this.